These are the best camera settings that you should use when taking photos and videos with your iPhone 17. Although most of these are available on older models as well. Now, yeah, I'm using the regular iPhone 17 for this video. So if you have a 17 Pro and Pro Max, there might be some additional settings that you do have that are not available on mine, but I'll make sure to go over those as well. So we're gonna jump straight into settings here, scroll down to camera, and we're going to jump straight into camera control here. Now, this is not something that I usually use, but you can adjust this button to fit your use case the best. You can choose a gesture to open the camera, choose a single click or double click, require screen on, camera adjustments, and then you can customize controls within the camera control button, so you can turn off exposure and depth, for example, or turn everything on. You can lock focus and exposure, that's turned off for me, and launch visual intelligence with a press and hold. You can just scan an object in front of your camera and get some additional information about it. Next, we're gonna go to photographic styles. I usually go with just standard, or sometimes I would choose neutral, because that gives you the most natural look, I guess. It doesn't look over processed or anything. So if you want to go with something that's most, I guess, true to life, you want to go with natural or standard, but you can play around with these and see if you like any one of these more and just go with that. And I'll show you later on how you can additionally adjust these within the camera app. You can tap the customize button here and just make some additional adjustments, but I feel like these controls are better presented in the camera app itself. I'm gonna go to record video, and I like to record video at 4K 30 FPS. You can also choose 4K 60, that's technically better, but just keep in mind that if you want your videos to have that cinematic look, then you want to go with 4K 24 FPS, because that's usually what most movies and TV shows are recorded in. If you're shooting at 4K 60, your videos might look a bit more natural, but just keep in mind that you're not gonna get that film look at 4K 60 FPS. For social media, TikTok, Instagram, that can be a good option, but also the more frames you shoot at, the bigger the file sizes of your videos. So if you want to save up on storage a little bit, again, 4K 30 is a great kind of middle option. If you have an iPhone 17 Pro or Pro Max, you would have one additional option here, which is 4K at 120 FPS. That's not something that you want to record all your videos in, but it is good for slow motion, just like 60 FPS actually is. So you can record at 4K 60 or 120 FPS and slow the video down later on to get that smooth slow motion footage. Basically, you put it in a 30 FPS timeline and then stretch it to slow it down. Again, I'm just going to keep it at 4K 30 here. Going down to show PAL formats, that's turned off. These formats you can see here is a television video format used in many countries in Europe, Africa, Asia, and South America. But that's something that was relevant like years ago, way more than it is now. So I am, for example, in Europe and I don't use these formats. But you can see here, if you turn on PAL formats, you get an additional 25 FPS to shoot in. But honestly, in 2025, in most cases, it's not really that relevant, so I just keep it off. Enhanced stabilization I keep on. Action mode, lower light, I keep that turned off. And HDR video I also keep turned off. But because this is a best camera settings video, this is just my personal preference. If you do want the best results possible out of your camera, you can keep the HDR video turned on. I found that it works well with social media stuff and makes the video much punchier. But to me, it looks a bit less natural, so I like to keep it off personally. But again, if you want best results possible, HDR video should be turned on. Auto FPS is turned off, lock camera is turned off, and lock white balance is turned on for me. Now, what this feature does is it prevents the phone from shifting white balance once you start recording a video. So if you're recording a video where you can control the lighting, and it doesn't change mid-video, then you can keep this option turned on. But if you are outside or just moving through different spaces with different lighting, I would keep this feature turned off. We're gonna go back here, go to record slow-mo. I just keep this at the highest possible option. In my case, that's 1080p at 240 FPS. But again, if you have an iPhone 17 Pro, then you would have an additional option here for 4K at 120 FPS, which is the best possible option for slow motion. So just depending on your phone, just choose the highest option available. Record cinematic video. This is at 4K 30 FPS for me. I don't actually use it that much, but that is the best quality, so I just keep it on 4K 30. Record sound. Now, this also can be a bit subjective, and again, depends on what you record. Since I'm recording usually just my voice, I keep it at mono. But if you were to record like a more demanding scene or short film, something that has background music in it or something like that, then you want to go with stereo or spatial audio. That's not a bad option as well, but Yeah, stereo is better if you have different sounds in the background, like background music or something like that. And if you are recording in stereo, then you have an additional option pop in here, which is wind noise reduction. You just keep that on. It is on by default, and it just reduces the wind noise in your videos. In most cases, if you are shooting like a short film, documentary, or something like that, you'll most likely have a professional audio setup. You're not going to use your iPhone's microphones. But yeah, stereo is technically the most complete option. But again, if you are just recording one person's voice and if you want it to be centered, then mono is the best option there. We're gonna go back and go to formats. For camera capture, I usually use high efficiency, which gives you reduced file sizes without losing out on quality. But if you are using like a Windows laptop or you have an additional Android device, a tablet, then you might want to go with most compatible, because this format is much more common and it's easily readable on any platform. But if you are in the Apple ecosystem, you can go with high efficiency. That's a better option there. For photo mode, I just go with 24 megapixels there. Next up, we have resolution control. If you have a Pro iPhone, then it's gonna say Pro RAW and resolution control. You can just keep that on because this just basically gives you a toggle within the camera app to control these different formats, which I'm gonna show you later, but definitely keep this on. And then again, on Pro iPhones, you would have an additional tab here that says Pro RAW format. In my opinion, the best option to choose is JPEG XL Lossy, because I found that it gives you way smaller file sizes while keeping the quality difference virtually unnoticeable. And one additional feature that Pro phones have is ProRes, and with ProRes encoding, log is the best option. I'm gonna go back here, go to preserve settings. Now, what these settings here do is basically preserve the camera mode that you used the last time you were in the app. So for example, for camera mode, if you keep this turned on, if you shoot video and then leave the app, exit the app completely, the next time you open up the app, it's gonna stay on video. But if this is turned off, it's gonna default back to photos. So all of these do that exact same thing for different functions of the camera. So if you wanna preserve a photographic style that you used last time, you keep this on. And if you want it to default to standard, turn this off. So just go through all of these here and see which one you use, which one you want to preserve, and which one you don't. But for me, the only thing that's turned off is camera mode, portrait zoom, and action mode. Everything else is turned on. I'm gonna go back. Next up, we have use volume up for burst. That's turned on. Scan QR codes, again turned on. And show detected text is turned on for me. In composition here, we have grid and level. Both of these are turned on for me. These kind of help you frame the shot a bit better. And grid is kind of self-explanatory. And level gives you, well, a level. It will kind of guide you to get the best framing possible. Mirror front camera is turned off. View outside the frame also turned off. And indicators here, I just keep all of this turned on, but it's not a necessary thing. If your camera app looks a bit too cluttered, you can turn these off. Now again, on Pro iPhones, you're gonna have an additional tab here that says Fusion Camera. And there you can choose between different lenses or focal lengths. In my opinion, it's best to default it to 24 millimeters because that one uses the full sensor and it's gonna give you the best resolution. But if you wanna play around with different focal lengths, you can adjust them here. Just keep in mind that 24 millimeters is technically the best quality, although not a huge difference. And everything else here is turned on, so portraits and photo mode, prioritize faster shooting, lens correction, macro control, lens cleaning hints, and save captures to photo library. All of these settings I just keep turned on. Now the next thing we're gonna do is go into the camera app itself, and I just wanna show you a few settings here. So first of all, in each of these modes, so photo, video, cinematic, slow-mo, you can access additional settings by tapping this little menu icon on the top right. And you can also do it just by long pressing the tab down here. So for photos, I usually keep everything on auto. Night mode is on auto. So now, because the camera is like pointing straight at the table, it is turned on, but you can turn it off here. But I just like to keep it at auto. I found that it's pretty good at detecting when you need the night mode to kick in. Here you can change the aspect ratio. I keep it at 4:3. You can toggle between 16:9, 1:1, so a square photo, or 4:3. And 4:3, again, uses the full sensor, so it will give you the biggest resolution file available. Now, photographic styles, if you jump in here, you can see you have way more to choose from here than in camera settings. So we have standard, amber, gold, rose gold, bright, just a bunch of them. Some of these can look pretty nice in certain situations. So if you want a bit more punchier colors and stuff, then you might want to go with vibrant. And for each of these, you can additionally adjust it by tapping this slider on the bottom here, or just kind of add a blue or yellow tint to your photos. And if you want to revert back to default, just hit this button here and it goes back to the previous settings. I'm gonna go back here. Here on the top left, you can choose the resolution. Maximum resolution is 48 megapixels, but I found that it's not a huge difference in quality. And again, file sizes, just like with a lot of these things. So I choose to shoot at 24 megapixels, but for best quality, go with 48. And again, on Pro iPhones, you will additionally see an option for RAW here. So you can choose RAW at 12 or 48 megapixels. Again, the best result you're gonna get from RAW at 48 megapixels, but just keep in mind that both RAW and ProRes RAW and log, all of these pro formats, they do capture way more information from both your photos and videos. So if you're shooting in tough scenarios where you're like backlit or something like that, that can be a great option. Or if you want more control over coloring and editing later on, but just keep in mind that you would need to, color and edit the photos later on. So you would have to boost the saturation, contrast, and a bunch of other stuff to get the desired result. So if you don't want to mess around with that, if you just want to point and shoot and get the best result possible just straight out of the camera without additional editing, then you want to keep these features turned off. And that's all just for Pro iPhones. Regular iPhones don't have these Pro formats available anyway, but it is something that I wanted to mention here. Okay, so now we're going to switch to video here. And again, long press or tap that menu icon on the top right. You get these additional features here. So you have the flash. I just keep that turned off. Action mode, I keep turned off by default, but it is a great option if you are walking or running and need to stabilize the footage as much as possible. And here you have one new feature that's available on the whole iPhone 17 series, which is dual capture, which basically allows you to shoot video with both front and back facing camera at the same time. So if you turn this on here, you could see I am like in the corner here, so it looks sort of like a FaceTime call or like a streaming setup or something like that. So it can be interesting in some situations, but I'm just gonna turn it off for now. And just one last thing, we're gonna switch to the front facing camera here. This is not a good angle at all, but we're gonna have to manage. In this camera, you can also choose to shoot at 4K up to 60 FPS. Again, I usually use 30, but 60 FPS for social media and stuff can be a good option as well. All of these shooting modes here have some additional settings depending on the mode you're in. So you can just long press and see the options you have here. But the most important settings here are in just the photo and video mode. And for photo mode, you can choose different focal lengths here. So you can switch from 1x to 2x, which is like a semi-optical, like a sensor crop, zoom, and then 0.5 is the ultra wide camera. I like to shoot with 1x most of the time because this is where you get the best quality result. This uses the main sensor, although the ultra wide has been updated as well to 48 megapixels, and it is a pretty decent upgrade. The main wide sensor is still much bigger and it will give you the best result, but again, depending on the scene, depending on what you're shooting. On Pro models, again, you will have additional options, which is 4x and 8x zoom that uses that third telephoto lens that the regular iPhones don't have. So if you adjust all of these settings like we talked about, I guarantee you're gonna see a big improvement in both photo and video quality from your camera. Like, share, comment, subscribe, all that stuff.